By the time Stalin sat down with Truman at Potsdam in July of 1945, his own intelligence service had already confirmed, using the dictator's own dental records, that Adolf Hitler was dead. Stalin let the uncertainty stand anyway. The proof sat in a small box, carried across a ruined city 2 months earlier by a 25-year-old army interpreter who was told she would answer with her life if anything happened to it. Her name was Elena Kagan. History would come to know her by her pen name, Rzhevskaya. She had been a philology student in Moscow before the war interrupted her studies. In January of 1942, she was sent to the front near a town called Rzhev, a battle so brutal and so costly that Soviet soldiers who survived it rarely spoke of it afterward. She served there as a military interpreter, translating captured documents and questioning German prisoners. She took the name of that battlefield as her pen name years later, when she finally allowed herself to write about what she had seen. By 1945, she had advanced with the 3rd Shock Army all the way to Berlin. She was attached to SMERSH, Soviet military counterintelligence, working under a small unit tasked with one specific, unspoken objective: find Hitler. At the end of April, Soviet forces closed in on the Reich Chancellery. On the 4th of May, a private named Ivan Churikov noticed a shell hole in the Chancellery garden where the soil looked unusually fresh. Underneath it, soldiers found 2 charred bodies, a man and a woman. Confusion followed almost immediately. A body double of Hitler had already been discovered elsewhere in the city, and for a day the Soviet team believed they had the wrong remains. The bodies were reburied. Then, on the 5th of May, they were dug up again, along with the bodies of 2 dogs. On the 8th of May, the day Europe celebrated victory, Elena's commanding officer, Colonel Vasily Gorbushin, handed her a small burgundy box. Inside, she was told, were the jawbone and teeth recovered from the remains in the garden. She was ordered to guard the box with her life. She later wrote that she could not quite believe the position she was in. A young woman standing in the ruins of Berlin, holding what might be the only physical proof in the world of how the war in Europe had actually ended. The box alone proved nothing. It needed a witness who had seen those teeth before, someone who could confirm what they belonged to. Elena and Gorbushin found her within days. Käthe Häusermann, a dental assistant who had worked for Hitler's personal dentist, was located and brought in for questioning. During her interrogation with Elena interpreting, Häusermann drew a diagram from memory of the dental work she had personally performed inside the bunker weeks earlier. The diagram matched the teeth in the box exactly. There was no longer any real doubt. Adolf Hitler was dead, and the Soviet Union had the evidence to prove it beyond question. According to later accounts from those who worked alongside her, SMERSH had chosen Elena for this specific task, partly because of who she was. Male officers, it was said, could not be trusted with a secret this large. They drank. They talked. A quiet, disciplined young interpreter was considered a safer place to put the most dangerous fact of the war's final days. Elena carried what she knew back toward Moscow. What happened next was not celebration. It was suppression. Her superior was summoned and given a message to relay, one that Elena would carry inside her for the next 20 years. Stalin had reviewed everything. He considered the matter settled, and he had one instruction. None of it was to be made public. The stated reasoning, passed down through the chain of command, was that the Soviet Union remained surrounded by capitalist powers who could not be trusted with the truth. The real reasoning was simpler and colder. Certainty was less useful to Stalin than doubt. An unconfirmed death left room for rumor, for leverage, for a story that could be shaped however the moment required. So the ambiguity was allowed to spread. Soviet newspapers hinted that Hitler might have escaped to Argentina. Others suggested he was hiding somewhere in Spain, protected by Franco. none of it was true. Stalin's own service held dental proof to the contrary, sealed in a file, known to almost no one. In July, Stalin traveled to Potsdam to meet with Truman and, briefly, Churchill. In that room, official interpreters carried the weight of the diplomacy. Valentin Berezhkov and Vladimir Pavlov translated the words that would shape the post-war world, phrase by careful phrase, unaware that a truth larger than anything being negotiated at that table had already been settled and buried weeks earlier. Stalin discussed the fate of Germany with the leader of the United States, while already knowing with certainty that the man both nations had spent years trying to defeat was gone. He said nothing that confirmed it. The silence did not stay contained to diplomats and generals. It reached all the way to the top of Stalin's own military command and stayed there for 2 decades. In November of 1965, Elena received a phone call from Marshal Georgy Zhukov, the man who had commanded the Soviet armies that took Berlin, Stalin's own wartime deputy. By then, Zhukov had been pushed into obscurity, first by Stalin and later by Khrushchev, and he rarely received visitors. He wanted to speak with her about something specific. He told her that he, the commander who led the final assault on the city, had never been informed with certainty that Hitler was dead. He was hearing it confirmed for the first time from a former junior interpreter, 20 years after the fact. The secret Elena had carried in a box across Berlin had outlasted the career of the man who conquered it. Käthe Häusermann's fate took even longer to come to light. The dental assistant who confirmed the identification, the one person outside the Soviet chain of command who knew the truth firsthand, was taken into Soviet custody. She spent 10 years in a labor camp. Elena did not learn the details of what happened to her until 1996, more than 50 years after the two women had stood together over a hand-drawn diagram of a dead man's teeth. For 20 years after the war, Elena said nothing publicly. Fear kept her silent. The specific fear of a country where a secret this large was not simply information, but a liability that could be turned against the person holding it. In 1965, the same year Zhukov called her, she published a partial account in a literary magazine, careful, incomplete, testing what could be said. 2 years later, she published a full memoir. Even then, under continued state censorship, parts of what she knew remained unwritten. She lived to be 97 years old, long enough to see the country that had silenced her collapse, long enough to finally learn the ending of a story she had helped write in a Berlin garden as a young woman. This is the buried record of Potsdam, not the treaty language, not the maps redrawn across a conference table. A box of teeth, a frightened dental assistant, and a 25-year-old interpreter, ordered to hold the truth and say nothing, while 2 world leaders negotiated the future of Europe, 1 floor above a fact neither of them was permitted to hear. This channel has already told the story of another person handed a secret too dangerous for the people around him to know. An American who carried a double life inside the Soviet Union's own leadership for 23 years, while his own government watched in silence. Different country, different decade, same shape. A person entrusted with a truth larger than the institutions meant to hold it. The file on Potsdam is not sealed. Most of what happened in that room has been written about for decades. What was never fully told is what one interpreter already knew before she ever walked through the door. This is the buried record. Subscribe to follow the archive. The next file is already open.